Welcome to Dave and Dharm Demystify, a Fintech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of fintech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Demystify.
And we're back at the Dubai Fintech Summit this week, and to this interview we have a special guest. It is Rouhana from Alfea. Roger, look, if you can give us a brief introduction to yourself and also just explain, what does Alfea mean? What does it do? That would be great.
Wonderful, and thank you for having me. A couple of seconds on myself. I used to run corporate strategy for BNY Mellon, one of the oldest banks in the US. It just turned 240 years old, founded by Hamilton himself, if you want to know everything. And prior to that, I was at McKinsey. I started there as a summer analyst, and then I did like the classical analyst, MBA, associate, engagement manager, associate partner, and then I jumped ship. All of my professional life has been focused on serving institutional clients in the financial space. And so moving on to sort of like how we got to Alfea. And so just in a couple of seconds, Alfea is a B2B wealth tech platform that delivers cloud-native, AI-first solutions to private banks, family offices, asset managers, to really fully digitize all aspects of their businesses and deliver a world-class proposition to their own clients, right? So it all started when I was head of corporate strategy at the bank. We noticed, I noticed a real gap in the market here, where you have this great thing, which is you have a pretty large and really growing asset pool. You have well-established regional champions, and you have a real demand for world-class wealth solutions. On the other hand, when you actually look at what's delivered to clients, there's a real gap. When it comes to digitization and UX, when it comes to the quality of advice, when it comes to the tools that the advisors have themselves and the relationship managers have themselves, there's a real gap in the market. And we thought, why don't we use a lot of the IP that the bank has in the US? Because the bank, one of the many things that it does is also, it is the leading wealth tech player in the US, where 1 in 3 financial advisors sits on BNY Mellon technology. Yes, it's an impressive stat. And so we're like, why don't we bring that IP here, but in a different fashion, right? So I did a bit of a round robin where we were like, look, for this to be successful, it needs to be grounded here, because one of the reasons why we think that there's a real gap is that other players aren't as anchored in the ecosystem, and you really need to be, because there are specific dynamics to the region. So we're like, why don't we partner with local sponsors and set up a completely new company? And the bank found in Lunette, which is a $100 billion alternative asset manager based in Abu Dhabi, a fantastic partner. A partner that shared the vision, a partner that shared sort of like the MO, et cetera, et cetera. And so that led to the creation of Alfea. Last June, we raised $300 million to go after this formidably complex problem that, even in the US is not fully solved. And here we are talking about Alfea with you guys.
So you've actually answered most of my questions already, because I was going to ask you what's the link with BNY Mellon? Obviously it's you. And I was also going to ask you, there are already established wealth technology providers, people like Avaloq and Temenos, so why would you create another platform? But I think that's still a question I have, right? So what's so good about the technology?
Okay, so first of all, I commend you on the research, right? Because people don't really know our space well. So really good job on researching for this interview. I thank you. So yeah, look, I'll focus on what we think differentiates us. We have this phenomenal chance to be building now. So we're building a platform that's cloud native, so we can leverage all the power of the cloud, number one. Number two, we're AI first. And so it's had we started 3 years ago, I wouldn't be able to say that, but we're able to integrate cloud thinking at the heart of the design of the platform. And that means that,
Sorry. Can I ask, what does that actually mean?
No, absolutely. So first of all, you need to think when you think cloud thinking, you need to think about the data. And so like the way you store data is different, the way you treat data is different. So that's number one, right? It's just like and then of course, like on top of that, you need to have all the infrastructure before you even get to the use case around making sure that you can use both generative and predictive AI properly. So anti-hallucination things, right? Tools. Because in particular, in the case of wealth management, you don't want to say stupid things, right? Because like the consequences would be pretty dramatic. So, you know, anti-hallucination is a thing. Another interesting thing is like generative AI is actually pretty bad still at numbers. So calculation. So you need to like find alternatives. It's getting better, right? But like, so there's all this infrastructure that you really need to build at the heart of it. And then it's about, okay, well, we kind of have a very good idea of where we want to go with AI when the tech will be more mature. But like, even if you look at the first features that we're deploying, how do you make it intuitive to the user, right? And so it's like, you don't want to add like, we're really trying to avoid having to add like a separate bot, right? That like just sticks on top of the existing screen that you're looking at. We're really trying to think about like, okay, what's the nice way? What's the most intuitive way to interact with an agent, right? And so that's it takes extra thinking, but the cool thing is that as we're designing our experiences, it's at the heart of it, right? So that's like, you know, it's so, you know, that's the first thing I would say like that differentiates us, is that we're able to leverage all of that at the heart of the platform.
Can you do this because the technology exists? So you talked about this being a incredibly complex problem, and you know, I guess my experience is much more in retail banking and business banking, and you know, I've often looked at wealth management and gone, you know, why is it so far behind, you know, in terms of what it's doing?
It's formidably unintuitive why it's so far behind, right? Because you're not splitting the atom here at the heart of it, right? I'm going to tell you, there's a couple of reasons. Nobody has invested in wealth management for the past 10, 20 years just because it's such a great business that churns decent margins, right? That's like one thing. So like, you know, when you think about retail banking, it's commoditized. It's brought like a lot of investments to digitize and stuff. That's number one. Number two, the practices around wealth management. If you think about it, an ultra high net worth individual in the past, they wanted to talk to an advisor that they liked, right? And the heart of the value prop was, hey, these are decent products and this is this great guy who you're going to trust, right? Of course, this is changing pretty fast with intergenerational wealth transfers. And so what you're seeing now is a retailization of the wealth experience, which is now driving massive investments in those platforms. And number three, it's the nature of wealth management. When you think about it, and when you look actually at the space in the US, for example, it's an extremely segmented space. You have players for financial planning. You have players for taxes. You have players for trading of equities. You have players for trading of like fixed income. You have players for like to give you access to private equity investments. And I can go on like forever. There's actually like when you look at a heat map of like the solutions that you need to run a platform, it's fragmented as one can think of, right? And so we're coming in and we're like, look, we're not going to build everything by ourselves, but we are going to bring you a platform where we have, of course, our own prop solutions, where we allow our clients to actually own the experience, because that's what they really care about, right? It's owning the end experience to their own sort of like colors, vibes, right? And where we can integrate with small players here and there when it's necessary, right? Like, I'm not in the business of like owning all the technology that's ever been built in wealth management, but I do need to integrate things in a seamless manner, which is also something that new tech allows you to do. When you look at older players, they're really built on monolithic, front to back, take it or leave it, you know, tech. And like, of course, this doesn't work in today's world.
I mean, I asked that kind of on purpose because I kind of know that the tech is like antiquated everywhere else. I mean, literally everywhere else. But it was a good response on also, you know, why it hasn't changed so much, because they're obviously making money. When you're making money, then why would you change it, right? So, the thing that's I guess intrigues me on the retail side of things, like you move to cloud platforms because the scalability of what you want to do is that, I want to run, let's say, banking as a service for 50 banks. Yeah. So now I have to think about how do I scale this platform, right? I'm intrigued about two things. One is like you're looking at that kind of scalability for wealth, right? Is that market big enough for that many customers on a cloud platform, right? And then B, it's kind of like do you see yourself as a technology company or not?
So let me start with the latter. We very much see ourselves as a technology company, and actually we are deliberately staying away from anything that's a supervised activity, right? But I think of myself as a banker. I was at BNY Mellon for 5 years. All of our exco, with the exception of our CTO, have been heavily ingrained in sort of like fintechs, right? So our CPO was at Revolut. He built their wealth and trading proposition. Our chief AI officer was advisor at Stanchart for 15 years and then participated to an AI company in France, an AI startup in France. Our chief client officer was at like Pershing, which is like the at BNY Mellon, which dominates the US market. So you'll see that like all of those people have a great combination of, okay, I understand my client, but I also go at solving problems in a tech savvy way. And so like that, and by the way, that's like, it's the balance we try to continuously, like, because like you're bombarded with new ideas and like new cool tech stuff, but at the heart of it, we're trying to solve the problems of advisors, right? And we're trying to bring platforms and wealth solutions to end investors, right? Because like we're building several portals. We have also a portal for management teams. It's like, okay, how do I manage my wealth franchise dynamically, right? Like this is something that they cannot do properly today. Today, it's even difficult for a head of wealth to dynamically allocate entitlements down its chain. Which advisor has access to what information? Which relationship manager has access to which feature? We can now do that. And that's one of the cool things that you can do now that you couldn't do 20 years ago. Like we have like very cool mappings, and you can do this like at a switch, right? Of a button. Click of a button. Click of a button. Yeah, excuse me. So yeah. Oh.
When did you start the company?
So officially we incorporated in June of last year. But
I asked that again because of a specific reason. So you started June last year and you got funding of 340 million. How does a startup get 300 million funding like in its first year?
I think that it's a recognition of two things, right? The first one is the opportunity. There's a big opportunity. The second thing is that's probably what it takes to solve that problem. So we're not out there splashing dollars around, right? We're actually very frugal. But when you're going to go to a large institution here and you're going to tell them, let me be the backbone of your wealth platform, the bet that we made was that like, or the assumption, and I think it's turning out to be true, is that they need to believe that you're financially sound. And the back of your question, it's also a formidable pressure on us, right? Because it's a tag that's like, on my forehead. Every time someone sees me, they're like, yeah, like he's and so we are actually, I think, more frugal with what we do. You can ask the third parties we work with, but yeah, look, we were very lucky. But the expectations are completely massive. Yes.
You're actually set up in ADGM. So can you explain a bit about what ADGM is and also why that was the right choice for you?
Yeah. Absolutely. So ADGM is a free zone based in Abu Dhabi. So it's the equivalent of the DIFC where we sit here in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi. A couple of things about Abu Dhabi first, right? It is emerging as one of the major global hubs for asset and wealth management. Of course, like when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. They have this pool with their sovereign funds, which has brought over the year a lot of sophisticated management, a lot of sophisticated individuals, and a whole ecosystem of fund managers, right? So over the years, it's been natural, right, that like you see a real deep bench building there, and over the past few years, they've actually gone out of their way and been diligent about building what they've coined as, and I really like the term, the capital of capital, right? It's catchy, huh? It's very good, and actually we can see it, right? So when you walk around there, you see a bunch of new asset managers opening shop all the time. You see a bunch of now wealthy individuals moving their family offices there. And it's backed by what? In addition to sort of like the talent pool, the capabilities, what do you find there? Stability, safety, right? It's really the new Switzerland if you think about it. And so because of that, there's such a rich ecosystem that it's been good for us. Look, the second thing is we are building for the region, right? And so we wanted to be close to our clients. The great thing is like, you know, there's our anchor client in Abu Dhabi, I can see his office from my office. And so when if something goes wrong, he can come, and my promise is he can just like grab me by the neck and exactly. And that's really also another one of our differentiators, which is we're here, right? And we're building for here. And it's not like the nth market, like the region is not the nth region on our priority list. It's what we're building for, right? And so, you know, Arabic native stuff, Arabic native designs, I say stuff a lot. Sharia compliance tags, Sharia compliant products, we make them available for our clients. There are, if you take the case of Saudi, very specific regulatory frameworks that you need to follow that have actually implications on the designs. So all of these things is also why we chose to be here. And look, it's resonating.
It's an incredible story. And I mean, I completely take your point about being in the region that you want to kind of target. But I also, you know, as we sort of sit here with this incredible FinTech summit going on, you just feel energy here as well. I don't know what your experience is, but, you know, this is Dharmesh's first time for many years in Dubai. And I was so excited to kind of have him here because of that energy. And with energy comes optimism, and with optimism comes so many confidence and all the, so you can kind of feel that here. So I was just wondering if you, just as a sort of final comment, because we're sort of running short on time, just reflect on that, please. I
did my first internship in September of 2008 at McKinsey, right? And then I worked in finance all along, right? And so what I'm trying to say is I never had the opportunity to be in a market that's growing, right? It's always been doom and gloom wherever I've been. And then we landed here, and it's true that like it feels markedly different in that like you have this optimism, you feel that you do have tailwinds, people are open to talk, people want to invest, people want to grow. And so it's actually easier than I thought to bring talent in, because also the global brand has dramatically improved from like, yeah, it's okay to, no, I would really want to come here. And like, it's because of lifestyles, because of the opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, look, it's cool. It's really cool to be here.
I'm just going to ask a question. I also spoke to DIFC earlier on this morning, and to kind of understand what they were doing to bring in the talent. And, you know, I was really impressed with their work. So I guess my question to you is that you've some experience in the US. Like, how do you compare regulation, like in the US compared to here? Like, how is it to deal with the regulators? Is there a difference in the way that they are here versus, you know, what you've seen in the US?
Yeah, so I have 12 years in the US. I'll say that proximity is probably sort of like a big factor, right? So there is a sense that there is a community and that we're not going to compromise on the quality, right? And that like we're going to be stringent. And I can tell you some of the regulations are stringent for what I think are very good reasons. And it's actually very reassuring because you need those regulations to steer investments. But at the same time, there's this ear that's there and they're like, well, okay, like let's work together. And definitely a slightly smaller market, right? So the degree of separation between a player and a regulator is always going to be sort of like slightly smaller, which makes it dynamic, which makes it like really business friendly. The relationship is not adversarial, how it may have been in other markets.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant having you on the show and really appreciate it. So enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Dave and Dharm Demystify. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tune in next time as we take another topic and demystify it.